back to Yakuza. I met Mr. Masochist. Yes, I did. I met Mr. Masochist. It was side story and school and all those it turned into just such a fun day. I have not had a day, besides the one brief, semi-brief dungeon, where I've just not been, like, enjoying everything about Yakuza Like a Dragon. And this day was no different at all. It actually lined up really nicely. People were begging that we go to school, because we finally had some cash in the bank, and school is just pop quizzes. That's all it is. It's just quizzes that increase your stats, your intelligence, and your charm, and your style, and all those kinds of things. And you have quizzes that are just all kinds of different subjects, from Sega's history, to local history, to world history, to mathematics. Just a whole array. Animals, all this kind of stuff. I was like, all right, we're going to school. We're going to go to school. We're going to get it done. And all you have to do is you have to get 3 out of 5 correct. They're very flexible on this, because they know that the audience is probably not going to get all these correct. And at the same time, it also tells you the answers afterwards, like what you did wrong, and they repeat. I think each section probably has like 10 questions, so very high chance of the 5 that you'll get repeats on the next one. So if you got it wrong the first time, and maybe you're not even quite sure why the answer is that or whatever, like, you'll know the answer, because there's a lot of questions that are also about the history of Yakuza. And considering this is a restart of the story, either way, it doesn't matter, right? They make it very gentle on you. Well, as I did the first one, and we were having fun with it, because the audience just, what a hate-filled mob of people just spamming constant different wrong answers and all that. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, questions about, I think it was from like Yakuza 1, who was the guy who lived in this province of Japan and was assassinated by who? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like, I have no idea. And they're just like 4, 3, 2, 1, just all spamming all the time. But there was a few people who like genuinely trying to help, who I like cottoned onto. I was like, okay, those guys are really actually being honest. And even they got some of them wrong, because the spellings, it was like Nobunto and Nabunto. Like, you know what I mean? Very close answers. As I was working through it, as my family arrived, because the school holidays have kicked in, and they were going camping, so they dropped by to say goodbye before they left for the weekend. And it turned into a group session that even Chris came out of his office and was like, I'm helping now. Like, we're all in on this. Super fun experience. And we did do all of them, including the mega quiz at the end, which is like a random assortment of questions from everything you've done so far. But some of the questions are so obscure, really obscure, that it was just no chance of us getting them. Thankfully, my musical-minded son was here, who plays a lot of music, but he was... I'm always impressed. It's very hard to try and look cool in front of a stream. Not many people have this experience, but like my kids do. When there's a lot of people watching you and you've got to do maths and music and stuff. My son was constantly like getting the right answer and saying things wrong and all that, and it was charming. I loved it. I absolutely had the best time with it. Super fun. But all the school is done now. School is done. Although there's a follow-up. I've got to get a lily for the lady who works at the school, which I have now. I went and grew it in the bedding plants. So I don't know where that goes. I have no idea whatsoever. But then it was like, oh, it's time for the main story. Right? No. Because the entire map is now filled with side stories. And the side stories are some of the best I've ever seen in a video game. They're completely preposterous for the most part. But they're an experience you want to have, right? Like, sometimes... I even felt this with The Witcher, particularly in the Final Zone Skellig, that I didn't enjoy. Is like, when all the side stories pop up, I was like, I'm kind of done with this area, because I just don't like the theme. Right? I love the game, but I don't like the theme of this zone, like the more Viking theme. And this time, when they pop up, you're like, ooh! So we got to finish Kuroi's storyline. I'm quite sad this story is now finished. It did turn out as suspected that Shirakawa, the lady that we're trying to set this homeless guy up with, was being abused. She has a very violent boyfriend that she used to love, and now he's like abusing her and beating her in the street and all that kind of stuff. So of course, Ichiban, not on my watch, I think he says something like that, and beats the crap out of him. But then there's a strange ending, which people were claiming is like, this is kind of a thing in Japan. This is what would happen. Again, shrews Japan. I shrews Japan all the time, which is just like, I don't know. Big shrug. Doesn't make sense to me. Where he says, I love you, but I'm not a man yet. Which is great self-reflection. Is like, I'm not in a position to be codependent? It's kind of that angle. It very much reminded me of FF16. We're not in a position to be codependent yet. But will you wait for me? And he's going to go off and he's going to get a job. He's going to get a house. He's going to do all those things in order to become the person that she deserves. And she's like, yeah, that's totally fine. Like, I'll remain single. I'll wait for you to sort your life out and come back to me. And in that time, then I'll return. I was like, okay. All right. I mean, I get it. I'm not a moron, but I was like, can we not like make contact? Can we keep it up to date? I would like more of this storyline. Ultimately, I hope this comes back later. I really do. I hope they pick it up later in the game after you've done more of the main story, because the time passage in Yakuza is very strange. You'll do like a bit of MSQ and weeks have passed. So I'm kind of hoping at some point this storyline returns, because I'd like to see the wedding and how they're going and all that kind of stuff. I'm really rooting for our boy Kuroi to see where he can go. Let's talk about Mr. Masochist. So I turn a corner on a street, and in the corner I see a lady strapped in lingerie, like leather lingerie. And to me, I was like, wow, that's like incredible, right? I'm a caveman, guys. I'm as simple as that. If my good lady decides it's time to whip out the lingerie, yo, we're down for the night. Like, it's time to book up. We've got a session. It's playtime, right? And I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And it turned out that she was being bullied by these other ladies for being too old and too ugly. And she's past her prime and all this. I'm like, I don't know what the hell is going on here, because like, I don't see that at all. I don't know whether the game could have done. I assume the game is like parodying, always parodying. There we go. Parodying expectations, because she was stunning for a video game character. She was beautiful, but they were like, oh, he's so rank and old. And then she admits it. She's like, I am too old. My client list is getting small. And she's a dominatrix. And I felt really bad for her. I was like, this is just really mean. Everyone's just being horrible to her. So you chase the ladies off, and then she runs off and blah, blah, blah. And it turns out there is a guy called Mr. Masochist. She works at an S&M fetish club. And there's a guy who just can't be satisfied anymore. No matter how many times his balls are stepped on, they whip him to death. It doesn't matter. He can't feel anything. And he's just lonely. And he's roaming from club to club to find some gratification, to feel something again, just to feel the luscious joy of pain. I'm like, where is this going? At this point, I'm like, oh my God. Oh, sweet Jesus. This game is just insane. Insane. And a whole thing then plays out where you meet him. And he's just so desperate. And you beat him down in the street. Like, all of you beat him down. He takes 0 damage. Like, he's just cannot take damage. He's dancing around. He's in his socks and underwear in the street. And you're trying to beat him. I threw everything at him. I threw the kitchen sink at him. He feels nothing. And then the story plays out is that eventually you go to meet Shirakawa, who's got a second job. She's a dominatrix and she works at the convenience store. Where there's an old lady there who turns out to be Mr. Masochist's mother. This is probably one of the funniest and most despair cutscenes in the whole game. Is you think, oh, his mother might put him back on the right track. And it is an endless assault of berating him over and over and over again. Just never ending. And to the point where Ichiban, and the best part of this is like, he's sat on a children's swing, a play swing, and he's just got his head down as she berates him. And in the next scene, Ichiban sat next to him because he's also like, oh my God, this is rubbish. This is the worst. And he's got his head down as well as this old lady just continues her verbal assault upon his entire mind. And afterwards he's like, I'm so sorry. That was like, I felt bad. And he's like, I know. This isn't what I was after. But then it got really dark. I'm not even sure if I could talk about this stuff on YouTube. And I don't want to upset anybody. But let's just say the next scene that played out came out of nowhere. And we were all like, what the hell, bro? Wow. And the mean girls have gotten a group of guys to come and assault her in the street. That's what's happening. And you're like, what? How? What? How? And it's really dark, like so dark. You're like, this is genuinely just so uncomfortable. This isn't funny. This is like, and that's what they play with a lot in the game is like, no, we take you up to here and then we bring you down to there and then we do this all the time. And you're like, reeling from it. I'm like, is this actually happening right now? And yeah, it's actually happening right now. And it's really intense. It doesn't let up. Until you're like, Ichiban, step in now, which is the investment you want out the game. Like, they nailed it, right? It's really out of nowhere, but you totally like, no, murder these people right now, which you do, obviously. And I was annoyed, actually, that the lady who'd organized this assault got away. Like, we let her go. I was like, absolutely not. Like, beat her down as well. Take her to the cops. Do something, because this is insanity what's happening right here, right now. But in that moment, Mr. Masochist is all like down and she slaps him and he feels it. And then you get that up again. Like, you're like, oh my God. And then you're like, oh, wait, we've solved, we've got happiness. He's like, I feel it. Please, will you hit me again? Please, and then it gets really weird. Again, just like down, up, down, up, down, up. Then he like strips off in his underwear. He's laying on the straw and she just starts whipping him in the street. I'm like, please go inside. Like, you guys do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to stop you, or, I'm not going to, this isn't my jam, but you do what you got to do, but please do it inside. Like, there are genuinely like just people and kids walking around here and you're dressed in leather and you're whipping a guy wearing his underwear who's like enjoying the hell out of it. Like, I was like, are they going to animate a boner here? Because that's what this is. Like, this guy is getting sexual gratification from this. Like, is that what's going to happen? Because I don't need to see that, right? I don't need to see that. So I was, and then it ended. Thankfully, gracefully it ended. But Jesus, what a side story. Absolute insanity. Absolute insanity. It was such a range of feelings. And it went on like that. We had an interesting story with a young girl who was trying to raise money for her brother who needed surgery. And there was charitable people in the street who were ripping off people under the guise of pretending they worked for a charity. Then we had a lonely boy that we were meeting regularly for dinner, and his mother was was working hard to try and provide for them and all. It just kept going and going and going. But what an experience. And my whole plan for our next playthrough, next play session, is not even to do the MSQ again. Like, I don't know how much we've explored of the main story because we're still unlocking stuff. Because everything else is just so fun to mess around with and do. And I think I've uncovered only half the world map, maybe less. Because I'm just messing around with stuff. In terms of gameplay, though, all I've done is I've kind of kept the characters as they are. The only one I might swap is Adachi. He doesn't do any damage. I swapped him to a foreman, actually. He's got a big hammer now. That suits my style more. It's the big bonk hammer. That's the only thing I changed. Because the Enforcer was fun, but it didn't do any damage. And when it came down to clearing a lot of trash, there's a lot of trash fights in the game. As I always want them to go faster. I just want everybody to cleave everybody down and get the hell out of there and move on. So that's gameplay-wise what I've done. But other than that, I'm engrossed. Utterly engrossed. And I hope that continues. And so far, it will not let up because we are now, 37 hours into the game? For $10? Bruh. Easiest pickup of my life, game-wise, right? So I'll see you tomorrow with whatever hell's going to happen then. Bye, guys.